The glass and steel tower of Nexus Technologies gleamed in the morning sunlight as I swiped my access card for what I didn't realize would be the last time. 3 years of 60-hour weeks, countless sleepless nights, and one revolutionary algorithm had led to this moment, the final presentation to the executive team before our product launch. My algorithm, designed to predict market fluctuations with unprecedented accuracy, represented a quantum leap in financial technology. Early testing showed 87% accuracy, nearly 20 points higher than our closest competitor. The potential applications were staggering: portfolio optimization, risk management, automated trading systems that could revolutionize how financial institutions operated. "Morning, Dr. Parker," called Melissa from reception. "Big day, huh?" I nodded, trying to contain my excitement. 3 years of work finally coming to fruition. "Richard wants to see you before the presentation," she added. "His office? A step." That wasn't unusual. Richard Harmon, CEO of Nexus Technologies, often requested last-minute briefings before major presentations. At 52, with silver streak hair and custom Italian suits, Richard projected the perfect image of a tech visionary. Though his background was in venture capital, not computer science. He built Nexus from a startup into a mid-sized fintech player through aggressive acquisitions and strategic hiring. I'd been one of those strategic hires, recruited from MIT with promises of resources and creative freedom. For the most part, he delivered, giving me the latitude and team I needed to develop my market prediction algorithm. Until recently, when he'd started inserting himself more directly into the project. "James, come in," Richard called as I approached his corner office. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, an antique mahogany piece that contrasted with the otherwise modern decor. "Close the door, would you?" Something in his tone made me uneasy, but I dismissed it as pre-presentation nerves. I was just reviewing the final slides. The demo should really impress the board. Richard nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. "About that, there's been a slight change of plans for the presentation." "What kind of change?" I asked, an uncomfortable feeling growing in my stomach. "I'll be leading it myself," he said, shuffling some papers on his desk. "And I think it's best if you weren't there." I blinked, confused. "You want me to skip my own project presentation?" "Richard, with all due respect, no one understands this algorithm better than I do. If the board has technical questions—" "The board won't have technical questions," he interrupted. "They care about market applications and profit projections, not mathematical minutiae." "But it's decided, James." His tone hardened. "In fact, I think it's best if you took some time off starting today." The pieces suddenly clicked into place. His recent interest in the technical details, the additional confidentiality agreements he had me sign last month, the way he'd been excluding me from strategy meetings while including my junior team members. "You're pushing me out," I said flatly, "now that the algorithm is complete." Richard's expression shifted from forced cordiality to cold calculation. "Let's not be dramatic. Your contract clearly states that all intellectual property developed during your employment belongs to Nexus. The algorithm is company property. I'm well aware of IP law, Richard, but this is my life's work." "No," he corrected, standing up. "It's Nexus Technologies' competitive advantage, a product we've invested millions in developing." "That I developed," I countered, anger rising. "Based on my doctoral research, using mathematical principles I pioneered." He shrugged. "Using company resources on company time. The legal situation is quite clear." He pressed a button on his desk phone. "Security, please escort Dr. Parker from the building. His employment has been terminated." I stood, struggling to process what was happening. "You can't just—" "I can and I am," Richard replied, no longer bothering to hide his smugness. "Your personal items will be shipped to your address. Your final paycheck includes 2 weeks' severance, which is generous considering the circumstances." "What circumstances?" "Your unauthorized attempts to share proprietary company information with outside parties." The accusation hit like a physical blow. "That's a lie, and you know it." 2 security guards appeared at the door as Richard sat back down, already dismissing me from his attention. "You're finished, James," he sneered as the guards moved to flank me. "Your algorithm belongs to us now. I suggest you leave quietly if you ever want to work in this industry again." Stunned, I allowed myself to be escorted through the office. My team watched in confusion as I was marched past their desks, badge confiscated, personal phone surrendered for security review. James, what's happening? Asked Aiden, my lead programmer. Ask Richard, I managed, throat tight with anger and humiliation. Apparently the project's taking a new direction. Outside, standing on the sidewalk like a trespasser before the building where I'd spent thousands of hours, reality began to sink in. Richard hadn't just fired me, he'd positioned himself to take credit for my innovation while simultaneously blacklisting me with false accusations of corporate espionage. My hands shook as I hailed a cab. I'd been naive, trusting that shared success would be enough for someone like Richard Harmon. I should have seen the signs. His increasing questions about documentation, his insistence that I share administrative passwords for continuity purposes, his subtle isolation of me from key stakeholders in recent weeks. Back at my apartment, I paced furiously, weighing my options. Legal recourse seemed limited. My employment contract was indeed clear about IP ownership, and fighting a corporate legal team would drain my savings before we even reached discovery. Without access to the Nexus systems, I couldn't even prove the algorithm's origins in my doctoral work, as those connections were documented in internal development logs. As anger gave way to strategic thinking, I realized Richard had made one critical miscalculation. He assumed that without institutional backing, I was powerless. He didn't understand that in the 3 years I'd spent developing the algorithm, I'd also built relationships throughout the financial technology sector, including with some of Nexus Technologies' largest clients and investors. One name came immediately to mind, Alana Vasquez, founder of Quantum Capital and one of the most respected venture capitalists in fintech. We'd met at a conference the previous year, where she'd expressed interest in my work and given me her personal contact information. "This is unexpected," Alana said when I reached her that evening. Her video image showed a minimalist office with San Francisco's skyline visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Though I've been hearing rumors about turbulence at Nexus, I explained the situation, careful to respect confidentiality requirements while making the circumstances clear. "Unfortunately, this story isn't unfamiliar," she replied, her expression thoughtful. "Richard Harmon has a reputation for, let's call it, aggressive appropriation of value. You know him?" I declined to invest in Nexus specifically because of Richard, brilliant at raising capital and making promises, less consistent at delivering ethical leadership. She studied me through the screen. "What exactly are you hoping for, James? Revenge? A reference? A new position?" "Justice," I answered honestly, "and the opportunity to complete what I started, the right way, with the right team." Elena nodded slowly. "I may have a proposition for you. Nexus Technologies is currently in a vulnerable position. Their last funding round fell short, and word is they're preparing for either an acquisition or public offering to shore up their capital position." My mind raced with possibilities. "You're suggesting—" "I'm not suggesting anything yet," she cautioned. "But I am interested in having a more detailed conversation about your algorithm. What you can ethically discuss without violating your agreements and what it might take to build something better." "Something better would take significant resources," I pointed out. "Resources aren't an issue for Quantum Capital," Alana replied with a slight smile. "What we value is vision, integrity, and transformative technology. Why don't you come to San Francisco next week? We can continue this conversation in person." Underscore 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 underscore. 3 months passed in a blur of activity, operating under strict confidentiality. I worked with Elena's team to develop a new prediction algorithm. Not a copy of my Nexus work, but an evolution that incorporated everything I'd learned from that project's limitations. We built it on different mathematical principles, creating something that wasn't just incrementally better than my original design, but exponentially more powerful. Meanwhile, Elena's market intelligence proved accurate. Nexus Technologies announced plans to go public, with a roadshow highlighting their revolutionary market prediction technology as the centerpiece of their value proposition. Industry publications featured glowing profiles of Richard Harmon, the visionary leader behind the innovation. "How does it feel seeing him take credit for your work?" asked Aiden, who had resigned from Nexus a month after my departure and joined our new venture. Several other key team members had followed, creating a brain drain that Richard had attempted to counter with aggressive non-compete enforcement. Frustrating, I admitted. But temporary. What Richard didn't know, what Alina had arranged through a complex network of investment vehicles, was that Quantum Capital had been quietly acquiring Nexus shares through private placements and secondary markets, building a significant minority position ahead of the IPO. The final phase of our plan centered on the annual Financial Technology Summit in New York, where Richard was scheduled to give the keynote address unveiling the Nexus prediction platform to the industry. Alina had secured us a prime exhibitor space under Quantum Capital's name, positioned directly across from the main stage. The morning of Richard's keynote, I stood behind our booth, heart pounding as attendees filled the massive conference hall. Our team was ready, our demonstration prepared, but the timing had to be perfect. Richard took the stage to enthusiastic applause, every inch the successful tech CEO in his tailored suit and practiced confidence. For too long, he began, financial technology has been constrained by the limitations of traditional modeling. Today, Nexus Technologies breaks through those barriers with our proprietary market prediction platform. As he walked through the capabilities of my algorithm, capabilities I knew better than anyone, I felt a strange detachment. The technical specifications he described were already outdated compared to what we developed at Quantum. Our proprietary neural architecture achieves unprecedented accuracy, Richard continued, enabling risk prediction and market assessment that will transform portfolio management. On cue, my phone vibrated with a text from Alina. It's done. 51.3%. I took a deep breath and nodded to our team. While Richard had been speaking, Alina's lawyers had completed the final transaction, pushing Quantum Capital's ownership of Nexus Technologies past the majority threshold. Through a series of strategic acquisitions over the previous weeks, we now controlled the company, a fact Richard was about to discover very publicly. As if on cue, the conference chairman approached the stage, interrupting Richard mid-presentation. They exchanged words, Richard's expression shifting from annoyance to confusion to alarm. The chairman then stepped to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an unexpected development. I've just been informed of a significant change in Nexus Technologies' ownership structure. He glanced at his phone. I'm told the new majority shareholder has requested a moment to address the audience. Richard stood frozen as the chairman continued. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the representative of Quantum Capital, the investor who has just acquired controlling interest in Nexus Technologies. That was my cue. I walked from our booth toward the stage, feeling hundreds of eyes following my progress. Richard's face drained of color as he recognized me, understanding dawning in real time. Hello, Richard, I said as I reached the stage, my voice amplified by the microphone. Surprise. The audience murmured in confusion as I turned to address them. For those who don't know me, my name is Dr. James Parker. Until 3 months ago, I led algorithm development at Nexus Technologies, where I created the market prediction system you've just heard described. I gestured toward Richard, who stood rigid with shock. Unfortunately, creative differences with leadership led to my departure. A ripple of uncomfortable laughter moved through the crowd. Everyone in the industry understood what creative differences typically meant. Fortunately, I continued, this gave me the opportunity to partner with Quantum Capital on an evolved approach to market prediction, one that achieves 94% accuracy in backtesting compared to the 87% offered by the current Nexus platform. The screens behind me lit up with our comparative analysis, showcasing the superior performance metrics of our new system. As the new majority shareholder in Nexus Technologies, Quantum Capital is excited to announce a strategic redirection. We'll be integrating our advanced prediction technology into the Nexus platform, creating something far more powerful than either company could achieve alone. I turned to Richard, whose expression had hardened from shock to barely contained fury. Mr. Harmon, I believe we'll need to schedule a board meeting at your earliest convenience to discuss the leadership transition. Richard stepped forward, seizing the microphone. This is ridiculous. You can't just. Actually, we can, came Alina's voice as she joined me on stage. As controlling shareholder, Quantum Capital has the right to determine Nexus Technologies' strategic direction and leadership. The paperwork was filed with the SEC 20 minutes ago. She addressed the stunned audience. Quantum Capital believes in ethical leadership and recognizing the true innovators driving our industry forward. Our first act will be appointing Dr. Parker as Chief Technology Officer of the combined entity, where he can continue developing the technology he pioneered. The audience erupted in a mixture of applause, gasps, and excited conversation. In an industry where corporate drama usually happened behind closed boardroom doors, this public power shift was unprecedented. Security appeared, not to remove me this time, but to escort Richard from the stage as Elena continued outlining our vision for the company's future. As he passed me, Richard leaned in, his voice low and venomous. "You won't get away with this. I have connections." "So do I," I replied calmly. "The difference is mine are based on respect and shared values, not fear and exploitation. You might want to check your employment contract, by the way. The termination clauses you're so fond of apply to executives too. Underscore 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 underscore." The aftermath unfolded over subsequent weeks with all the drama one might expect. Richard contested the acquisition through legal channels, but Quantum's strategy had been meticulously executed and documented. Every share purchase was legitimate, every filing compliant with regulations. Under Elena's guidance as executive chairperson and my leadership of technology development, we merged the best elements of both companies. Most of the Nexus technical team stayed on, many expressing relief at the change in management culture. "I never thought corporate takeovers could be satisfying," Aiden commented as we prepared for our first major product release under the new structure, "especially when they're essentially revenge plots." "It wasn't about revenge," I corrected, though there had admittedly been satisfaction in seeing Richard's expression on that stage. "It was about making sure innovation wasn't buried under ego and greed, about creating something valuable the right way." Elena, overgearing as she entered the lab, nodded in agreement. The best response to unethical behavior isn't retribution, it's building something better. Though, she added with a smile, "I won't pretend the look on Richard's face when you walked on stage wasn't a nice bonus." 6 months after the conference, our integrated prediction platform launched to industry acclaim and rapidly growing adoption. True to our vision, we maintained transparent development practices and ethical deployment guidelines, ensuring our technology would be used responsibly. Richard Harmon eventually landed at a smaller competitor, though his reputation had been permanently damaged by both the public takeover and subsequent revelations about his management practices at Nexus. Several former employees came forward with stories similar to mine, describing a pattern of idea appropriation and intimidation. 1 year to the day after my unceremonious escort from Nexus Technologies, I found myself addressing our combined team from the same corner office that had once been Richard's sanctuary. The mahogany desk was gone, replaced by a more collaborative setup that reflected our company's evolved culture. "Today marks both an anniversary and a beginning," I told the assembled staff. 1 year ago, I learned a painful lesson about power and intellectual ownership. But through that experience, we've built something more valuable than an algorithm or a platform. We've built a community committed to innovation with integrity. As I looked out at the team, familiar faces from Nexus, new colleagues from Quantum, talented people who joined us attracted by our vision, I realized Elena had been right all along. The most satisfying response to injustice wasn't revenge, but creation. We hadn't just reclaimed my algorithm. We created an entirely new approach to financial technology, one built on transparency and shared success. The view from the CEO's office was impressive, but it wasn't what motivated me. What mattered was that we were building something meaningful together, something that would last long after the story of its traumatic origins had been forgotten. Though I had to admit, whenever financial publications ran retrospectives on the conference takeover, as it had come to be known in industry circles, I still allowed myself a small, satisfied smile. Some lessons in business are expensive. Richard Harmon had learned that taking credit for someone else's innovation might seem expedient, but it's ultimately a poor investment strategy, especially when you don't know who's really sitting across the negotiating table.